Good evening. Before I get to the introduction, 1 month post-surgery. Great, Eddie. Good to have you back. Mary did ask me to reiterate to everybody, we won't all shake his hand and hug him, but his resistance is still down. So, as Maureen said, just wish him well from afar, and we're all happy for you, Eddie. Tonight, as we honor the outstanding, we are certainly glad to welcome back Dr. Lowell Catlett. I won't read Maureen's words because she said something about rock star, but I'll call him a superstar in economic development. And when I first met Dr. Catlett, which was several years ago at a conference across the country, I came back and I said, Maureen, I found the speaker for this year's dinner. And she said, no, that's my job. And I said, I got the guy this year. So she told the entire board that if he was great, she found them. If he was horrible, I found them. So I'm very pleased to be up here as he is invited back. He's one of the best keynote speakers in the history of this organization, and I call him the Triple E: energetic, educational, and engaging. Dr. Catlett is a Regents Professor and the Dean and the Chief Administrative Officer. Who knew New Mexico State University had a college with a business school? Who knew? Dr. Catlett is also a consultant to many Fortune 500 companies, the U.S. Department of Agriculture, Interior, Defense, and Labor. I'm not sure I'd be bragging about that these days, Dr. Catlett. But he is back by popular demand. And let's give him a warm Orange County welcome, Dr. Lowell Catlett.
Thank you very much, Alan, for that very, very kind introduction. When I first came into this community a couple of years ago, Alan and his wonderful wife, Robin, were gracious and kind to me and did not treat me like a stranger, treated me like a friend. And since then, they've been warm and engaging, just like this community is. And as Mr. Diana kept saying more than once, the greatest county in all of New York. Did you say that? I think you said it several times, Mr. Diana. And I found that to be so, and I deeply appreciate the opportunity to be invited back. Usually economists don't get invited to do anything more than once other than leave the room, so thank you for letting me come back. I do sincerely appreciate it. It's, again, the warmth and the hospitality, and I get truly engaged and energized by listening to your award recipients each year and what you've done and what you're doing in this county, and it gives me great hope to go back to New Mexico and hope that in those wild open spaces out there we might achieve just a small portion of what you've done here, and I deeply appreciate the opportunity to be in your community. I was very inspired by Mr. Diana coming up here after having major surgery, because I had the opportunity a few weeks ago to be in a healthcare conference in Minnesota, and I was really looking forward to the first speaker for the day, because he's one that was advertised that he was going to talk about he studied longevity, where people live the longest and what causes longevity. And so I was really, at my age, I'm really kind of interested in that suddenly, all of a sudden. I'm just happy to be vertical on a given day. And so I was really looking forward to this presentation. So all of a sudden, and there's a room full of about 300 of us, and we're all baby boomers, most of us, and if we have hair, it's gray. And here comes this young man. He's an actor, obviously, and he bounds on the stage, and he's probably all of 35 or 40, and he's got kind of a silky shirt on that shows off his six-pack, and he doesn't have an ounce of body fat. He's just really quite sickening. And he gets up there and he looks out and he goes, I'm really happy to see all you baby boomers, because really this is what this is all about, because I'm going to talk about you men, because the average age that you live to is 76. I'm going to talk about getting you 8 more years to 84. You women, 82. I'm going to talk about 8 for you. I'm going to get you to 90. And we're going to take a little self-administered quiz, and you got to be honest about it, but if you do it, you can figure out how much those extra 8 years you're going to get, and if you do it real honestly, you can probably get real close to the age you're going to die. And I'm thinking, I'm not sure I want to know that, but in any event, so he starts off and he says, you got to be honest with this quiz, and the object of it is to answer no as much as possible, honestly, because a no will add about a year. A yes is going to take about a year away. And he starts out, and the first question is this: do you, during the normal course of a week, consume more than 10 alcoholic beverages, regardless of type of alcohol? And I'm going, 10? Then the next one, do you, during the course of a week, regularly get less than 6 hours of sleep a night? And I'm going, I go to bed at midnight. I'm not doing well on this quiz, folks. And then the third one was kind of the coup de grace, like, do you, during the normal course of a month, consume bacon more than once? I'm going, what? Folks, after this quiz in about 20 minutes, I determined I've been dead for 3 years. Okay? I'm not sure I'm going to make it through this presentation, folks. I really don't. Okay? But, you know, and you may not want to, because I've never been ashamed of being an economist, and I guess I'm still not, but it's kind of raw sometimes when we get exposed for not being real good at doing things. And if you go to graduate school in economics, you always take a class in something called econometrics, which is just a fancy name for just taking economic data and throwing all the math and statistics at it you possibly can until the data just gives you the answer that you want, okay? We call that econometrics, okay? And so when you do that, you naturally kind of get arrogant and you think that you can kind of figure out the economy. But all good econometrics teachers always tell you, no, you're not real good, okay? Do not forecast. You've done all this, you've fancied it up, do not forecast. But we know that you can't help yourself, so we know you're going to forecast. We're telling you not to, but we know you can't help yourself. So do this. If you got a forecast, give people a number, give them a date, but do not give them both. Okay? Yeah. I think interest rates will get to 11% again. I just don't tell you when. Okay. I think something of economic significance will occur in 2015. I just don't tell you what. Okay. Give them a number, give them a date, don't give them both. But despite that, we couldn't help ourselves. Somebody had the gall and the audacity, because they went back and checked us. And real easy to find, in the last 10 years, 7,000 forecasts my profession made. They found them real easy, because we made a whole bunch more. 7,000 that they tested. We gave them a number, gave them a date. They could check the accuracy. 10 years, we forecast everything from individual stock prices to the stock market, unemployment rate. We forecast everything. And at the end of it all, our accuracy rate turned out to be 47%. You understand what I just told you? You can flip a coin and beat us by 3 percentage points. Okay? We don't know, Jack. Okay? I'm not trying to make light of it, but what I am trying to tell you is this, folks. All we know about the future, and the best way to do it that we know of, is we know we can't predict it, but you know what? We can prepare for it. Okay? And you prepare for it by just, as I call it, imagining it. Okay? Just think about it. Imagine it, if you will, because that's really all we can do. And I want to do that with you tonight for just a second about a few that are just some fun things that are going on out there. I want you to imagine, if you will, a world that has no poverty. Well, as Jesus told us, the poor will always be with us. Well, I don't know whether he was talking about economics or whether he was talking about spiritual items. I don't know. But we've always kind of thought, well, there's always going to be poor. Well, can we imagine a world that isn't the case? Well, wait a minute. We're getting close to it. Okay? First time ever, The Economist magazine. Now, y'all know that I don't use PowerPoint, so let me explain this. Okay, real quick to you. Okay? This is up. This is down. This is I'm weird. Okay? The Economist magazine, on the cover just a few months ago. First time ever they had a graph that was down, and what it was down from 10 years ago, the number of people that lived on this planet that lived on less than $1.25 a day, and it was 2 billion 10 years ago. And it's the lowest it's ever been in recorded history today, sitting at 750 million. That's a large number, but we've never had in a 10-year period so many people that go from abject poverty into a better life. The world is getting wealthier. First time ever, this year, 2013, The Economist magazine measures economies that will produce $1 billion or more in gross domestic product. There's 195 of them that they'll follow this year. And this year, the output of those 195 countries will be the largest ever in history. $70 trillion. Huh. And I just ran the numbers For China, five-fold increase in heating and air conditioning units that were shipped to China the last 5 years. Sevenfold increase in India. During that same period of time, those 5 years, China again doubled their per capita meat consumption. India, a country not known culturally or religiously for eating beef, doubled their beef consumption last 5 years. Enough Indians got enough money, somebody just said, I'm trying a cow. 70 trillion bucks? Well, what share of it is the U.S.? Well, if you listen to the press, it's, oh my gosh, it's terrible. This economy before this year is up, and it's almost up, will register its first ever $17 trillion. That's staggering. Out of an output of the world, 17 trillion. We got 70 trillion in the world, and we're 17. The closest country to us. China will officially this year be the second largest country, but it'll be 7 trillion. We're 17. There's 313 million people. Oh, incidentally, and nobody ever tells you the number, but it's important to you because you'll never see it on TV, but you should. We have 121 million households. The collective net worth as of 2 weeks ago of those 121 million households, the net worth, you understand net worth? You got some assets, you got some liabilities, net. The net worth is 72 trillion. American households are worth more net than the entire global output. That's fabulous. 5 years ago, the Brits did an interesting study, and I loved it. They said, but really, how much money do people need? And you know what the answer came back? What they found out in Great Britain was about 50 grand. When we ran the studies in the U.S., you know what we found out? About 65. About 65. Now, 65 probably doesn't buy you a cab fare in New York City, but okay. But in New Mexico, you live like a king. Okay. 65 grand. Because as we found out, guess what? After about 65 grand for the average American, guess what? What are you doing? No, it's after about 65 grand, it's basically what? You just buy a nicer car and stay on a vacation for another week or something. About 65 grand. What I'm trying to tell you, folks, is when I got my bachelor's degree in the early 1970s, there were 3.8 billion people on this planet. And we could not, in this world, provide 2,450 calories, which is what the average person needs to sustain themselves. We couldn't do it for 3.8 billion people. And today the world has 7.2 billion people. We've doubled it. And I'm very happy to report to you, for the last 10 years, your agricultural system has done what? It has produced not 2,450 calories for every man, woman, and child on this planet, but it has produced 2,800 calories. The world produces now more calories than the average person needs, and that's happened first time in history. Can you imagine a global, phenomenal world of wealth? Because it's here. And it's going to change everything. Already is. The number of air conditioners we ship. Oh, and this one just came out last year. We now want organic vodka. Huh? Like 90 proof isn't going to kill every damn thing in the bottle? We're not making light of organic. I'm just trying to say, who would have thought it? Okay? And now, guess what? When I was kind of teasing her about it, that was in charge of the marketing for it, she said, Lowell, you can tease me all day long. I'm pushing the production people. I can sell 10 times more than I can get produced right now. I go, who is buying organic vodka? And her comment to me was, people that go to spas. Go to spas and have cucumbers on your eyes? I've never been to one. Let me ask you something. My 86-year-old mother, who still lives on a ranch in the Panhandle of Texas, both knees been replaced, 11-year breast cancer survivor, gets up every morning at age 86 and goes to work and does what ranch women do. Think she's ever been to a spa? I'm not making light of it. I'm just trying to tell you, in an affluent world, get ready for a whole bunch of things we're going to imagine. And let's start first one with this one, because this one's kind of fun in the United States. You know, we used to produce a lot of oil and gas, and then all of a sudden, guess what? For the last 30 years, 60% of all the oil we import has come from somewhere else. So I did an interesting thing. And you know this because I said it to you last time, but I'll reiterate because it happened to you. For 3 years running, the fastest growing oil and gas producing state now is not the one I grew up in, Texas. Which one? North Dakota. There's like 3 people in North Dakota. Okay, 3 very rich people in North Dakota. Okay. I'm trying to tell you about forecasting and how tough it is understand this, okay? I went back just a few days ago, pulled back all the annual reports of 10 years ago for all the major oil and energy producing companies in the world to see if they had imagined, if they could, a world where America could be energy independent again. Not one single one of them. But wait a minute, in the midst of all of that, they were the ones that were developing horizontal drilling, parabolic drilling. They were the ones that were taking offshore drilling and taking it from 60 people to run a platform to 15 because of robotics and smart systems and drilling 3 times deeper. They invented it all, and they didn't imagine that we could be energy independent again. But if you count net energy value, we were energy independent 2 years ago. Now everyone, if you'll read their annual reports, imagines a world of energy independence. Oh, and if you saw the latest forecast, if you take Canada, the United States, and Mexico, we have the largest known pool of oil and gas in the world. The estimate is 1 trillion barrels. But the estimate also said it could be 6.5 trillion. What? A lot. And then, well, what's going to happen to renewables then? Oh, holy cow, folks, did you just see? We took what was given the Nobel Prize for, graphene, in 2010, a lattice of 1 molecule of graphite, first time ever produced. It's 150,000 times thinner than a human hair. It is the world's most perfect conductor. And guess what? It conforms to anything, and you can spray it on any surface. It will absorb and get to that surface. And guess what? A 20-year-old waterborne technology peels it right off, and you can have the world's most energy-efficient solar cell shaped like anything on the planet. Get ready, folks. We have no idea what we're going to do with graphene. 200 companies are already trying to figure out how to make the world's smallest batteries. 1 strand of it, incidentally, ladies and gentlemen, has enough tensile strength to hold an elephant. And it's 150,000 times smaller than a human hair. Oh, get ready. Energy just changed. And have you heard this one? America doesn't make anything anymore. Have you heard that one? When anybody tells you that, tell them, what an unmitigated crock. A lie. We make more things in America today than any time in history, and we make more things than anybody in the world. No, we don't make color television sets anymore. But we make some real smart heart stunts. And we make the finest heavy and farm equipment and some pretty nice aeroplanes. And we do not count the 6 million brand new white oak whiskey barrels every year that we make. Okay. Those are not durable. Okay. We make more things than any time in history, and get ready, folks, because manufacturing is changing like you've never dreamed possible. 2 technologies blows our doors off. One you've read about, you've seen about it, you've heard about it. It's just beat to death all the time in the press. But let me update you on how critical it is. It's called 3D printing. Many of you are doing it. I know that. But let me tell you about when we take 3D printing and get the FDA to give us an exemption so that we can build a lattice for a young baby boy that was born with a collapsed larynx and could not live even with surgery. But the FDA gave approval for the medical device to print the framework in a plastic polymer that degrades over time and absorbs into the human body. And it was 2 years ago experimentally put into the larynx of the young boy right after birth. Very happy to report to you, he has a very good, nice, functioning larynx today because we printed one for him. And did you see it on national television just a few weeks ago where somebody took and printed leather? Printed leather out of just a bunch of chemicals. Had to go through the tanning process. And then on national television, they presented it to two, quote, leather experts, and they couldn't tell the difference. And we just printed the first framework for a kidney, first framework for a liver, first framework for a heart valve. Oh, get ready for biomedicine with a 3D printer. And a few months ago, when I spoke to the American Manufacturing Society, a gentleman came up afterwards and he said, "Thank you for talking about this. They read about it all the time, but they just don't understand its power. And oh, by the way, as a thank you," and he handed me a little very hard plastic adjustable wrench. I know it by its trade name, Crescent. It wasn't a crescent, but if you know what I'm talking about, a little adjustable wrench. He handed it to me. He said, "Thank you." He said, "Oh, by the way, I made that one this morning in my hotel room." And did you see on the cover of MIT's Technology Review just 5 months ago, a 3D printed out of metal turbine for a very complex military jet engine manufactured in a garage in Cambridge, Massachusetts? Get ready, folks. The revolution of manufacturing will blow your doors off. But one revolution is sneaking up on us. And this one has got, I don't know. I can only imagine this one, okay? Because it's weird, okay? Those of you that are IT people know this. One of the reasons that you can be in Orange County or be in Mesilla, New Mexico, where I live, and do things on the internet and with information technology is something called open source software. You take packets of software and anybody anywhere can just make things and put them there. I saw on the cover of a major gaming magazine not too long ago, I recognized a post office that is a block from my little sleepy New Mexico village home that I live in, and I recognized the post office, and it said, one of the top 5 gamers in the world. He's a recluse. He chose to live in Mesilla, New Mexico. Only reason I knew that he lived there was because I recognized the post office. He gets to live in Mesilla, New Mexico, and be one of the 5 top gamers in the world. Oh, and get ready for gamers. Okay? They're weird as hell. Okay? And if you doubt it, just a few months ago, those of you that are into it know this. The Staples Center in Los Angeles filled to capacity for the World Game, whatever they call it, contest between South Korea and China. That wasn't what was intriguing about it all, because you look around the audience and, man, are they full of nerds. Smart people. But 20 million people worldwide were hooked to it on their computer in live action, participating as well, making it the largest single entertainment interactive event ever staged in the world. Let me ask you something, folks. Do you think that generation and those people are going to pay $100 million for somebody to be a shortstop? Get ready for entertainment to change. Okay? Because I don't understand it, but get ready because they're pushing it. But here comes the one that's the most intriguing. Open source software is just packets of software. Now we got the revolution that's going on in what? Open source hardware. Open source hardware is about a big chunk of you in this room. You know how to run a wrench. You know how to run a welding bead. Gee, let's see. You go down to Lowe's or Home Depot or to your local hardware store. Can you buy angle iron? Can you buy welding rods? Can you pull out your MIG? Can you run a few welding beads? Can you turn some wrenches? If you know and think in your mind you can build something, you do it. Open source software is what? I mean, hardware is the idea, guess what? I'll give you the plans now. You go put them together. Google it. You'll find a great TED Talk of a young man, 6 days, $8,000, built the equivalent of a $50,000 tractor for his farm. 6 days, $8,000 off the shelf. Gave him the plans. So you got 50 scientists giving the plans for the 50 machines that will change the world. The first one is compressed earth bricks. You take flat iron, angle iron, a few bolts, run a welding bead, turn some wrenches, one hydraulic cylinder, one person in one day for $100 can make something that then another person in one day can manufacture enough bricks to build a new home. Now, why is that important? Well, you know what's interesting about this world wealth is the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation got $3 or $2, okay? They went out on a great quest and said, we're going to take this great wealth and we're going to help people in impoverished parts of the world with their human health. But they found out real quickly that you can't separate out people's livelihoods from their health. So they very quickly understood that most of these people were subsistence agriculturalists. And so a little over half of them were female. So they went on a great study and found this. When they gave the women farmers, a little over half of them, the same access to resources as the male farmers, most of the time just a micro loan, maybe $5, sometimes just education, the proper way to do something, just a few seeds sometimes. The women were 30% more productive. 30% more productive for 3 billion people. And what did the women choose to spend their 30% on? Shoes. I get that answer a lot. Actually, I believe very strongly women are hardwired for family, so they spend it for educational opportunities for their children and better diets. And what did the men do with the 30% that their women were producing? Beer? No, I've heard that. Actually, I think men are hardwired for protection, so what we found out in the surveys was the men were more prone to think this: what good is a better education or a better meal if somebody steals it from you? So they were all about trying to protect the family and the 30% resources. All of a sudden, folks, just a little twist and a little change, and the world starts rising. That is fabulous, all with a little bit of manufacturing. So get ready for open source hardware. Gonna blow people's doors off. Think now the implications for education for that. Wait a minute, my generation, we were all about baby boomers. There's some baby boomers in here, right? Did anybody have, you men, did you have shop? Did you get to go out to shop? We called it vocational education, okay? Got to go out to shop and, you know, and make your mom a kind of a cattywampus crooked bookcase for Mom's Day. Hey, teach you how to run a plumb line, use a square, do it better. We were sexist then. Women got to go up into the old home economics classes and do what? Learn some food technology. We were sexist, no question. We call it vocational. And then we went, I think wrongly, on a great arrogant mission, and we said this: everybody needs a college education. No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry they don't. Okay, college. I've been in it my whole life. I love college. Don't get me wrong, but I am trying to tell you this: in an open source hardware world, you know the skills we need. They're not bachelors in economics. God bless us. Yeah. They're people that know how to run a welding bead and turn some wrenches. What I'm trying to tell you, folks, is get ready for a major revolution in the educational skills we need for this new manufacturing world, because they're blue-collared. Okay? And you can call them what you want to. We don't use the term vocational anymore. That went out of fashion. We call it experiential learning. But let me tell you the power of experiential learning, okay? Think of the generation that grew up with these things, okay? You can write 1,000 theses on these things. Remember when you used to go walk down the street and look people in the eye? Now you walk down the street and what? Everybody's what? They're doing what we used to call affectionately the BlackBerry prayer. You know, they're sitting there. not wrong or right. It's just all of a sudden, guess what? Everybody finds this thing more intriguing. But wait a minute. Don't get mad at it. Understand what we can do with it. 2004, somebody said, if you're going to carry it around, let's put a camera in it. What's happened to the number of photographs you've taken since 2004? Tenfold increase. You have no idea where they are. They're in cyberspace somewhere, but you got 10 times more photos. Okay? A camera all of a sudden. And now somebody's marketed on TV as what? Well, you need to buy your cell phone because it's the best camera on the market. Huh? I thought it was a phone. No, it's not. So somebody very smart, Carnegie Mellon, said, why don't we take this lens out and don't make it a camera to take pictures. Let's put in what's called a molecular lens, a molecule of oil and water that electrical impulses will change 60 times a second. And then we'll put in for UIT jocks something called black and white programming, an algorithm that looks at patterns of light and dark. And then guess what? I will prick your finger. All I need is one molecule, but I'll prick your finger if you're a diabetic. I'll get thousands of those molecules of blood, but all I need is one. And one day we'll probably be able to do that with just one. But then I just shine that lens on it, and it does an instant blood test. Did you hear me? An instant blood test. We're rushing that one as fast as we can to people that work in developing parts of the world for people with blood-borne illnesses, because I guarantee by the time you could do the pathology on somebody out in the middle of nowhere with malaria, they're dead. And now we got a little app on your phone. And then somebody said, well, let's take that same thing, put a near-infrared laser in it, change the black and white programming, and then I will shine it on the blemish on my skin, and the near-infrared laser goes 1/10 of an inch underneath it, and all of a sudden, now I know whether this blemish is benign or cancerous. Think I might like that one. And then a gentleman in Dallas showed me this one just 6 weeks ago, took his finger, put it over the lens, positively identify him by his thumb, his index fingerprint, and then guess what? Turned it around, all of his heart data. I said, what's that number mean? He says, I have no idea. I go, what do you mean you have no idea? He said, all I know is that my cardiologist says do it 5 times a day. I said, your cardiologist gets all that information 5 times a day? He goes, no, Lowell, you know it goes into a computer. It's got intelligent default smart systems. The system looks at it, and then if there is a problem, the computer calls the cardiologist. For those of you in medicine, you get to see your patient, if you're a heart patient, well, once a year. Do the data, how about 5 times a day? Get ready for a revolution in what we call do-it-yourself diagnostics. And the smart medical systems want that data like crazy, because that is powerful. Unbelievable, folks. Okay? Put that together, though, with this thing. I think I talked to you about it last time, didn't you? This Kindle. Okay? I don't work for Amazon, so I don't have a problem with the brand name. This is the game changer for this reason. 3,500 books. Huh. And Amazon promises me that if I have cell service, I can get one in a minute. Anywhere in the world where I've ever been with cell service, guess what? It's not taking a minute, it's taking 15 seconds. Amazon for the last 5 years has sold more e-books, incidentally, a 20-year-old technology, sold more e-books than they have real books, and they sell more real books than anybody in the world. Oh, isn't it interesting when they first started trying to sell e-books? What was the response from everybody? Well, you know, I can understand that, but I just like the feel and the heft of a book. Oh, really? I like to carry my library. And if I don't got it, I can what? Get it. So here comes the revolution. Get ready for it. Don't know the implications, but I do know this. As I was having the conversation with the chemistry prof, he said, well, of course, in economics, you can have an e-book because you've not had an original thought in 30 years. You can have an e-book. But for chemistry, you know, Lowell, it's very complex, and we will need very colorful textbooks. We can't have an e-book for chemistry. I go, oh, really? Let's see. I get to the part where it talks about adding a base to an acid. I can read about it in my e-book, but in my e-book there's a hyperlink, and I hit it, and a world-class professor in a world-class laboratory. I have no idea where, but I can pick the language that they speak in. Will tell me what happens and show me what happens when you add a base to an acid. think I might like that one. So here's the revolution. What do we do in education, folks? We do exactly what we're doing tonight. We've done it for 150 years, and I'm very proud of it, and I'm not knocking it. Somebody stands up and professes and pontificates. Somebody sits passively and absorbs. And then I send you home with homework to make sure you weren't texting while I was talking. How about this world? You get the lecture anytime, any place, anywhere you want to. And you come to class, and we'll do the homework. I'm not telling you bricks and mortars aren't important. I'm just trying to tell you, guess what? We might use them a little differently. I'll go out on a limb tonight and tell you this. And incidentally, for those of you in education, you know what we call that? We call it what? Flipping. Good teachers have flipped for years, haven't they? I'll go out on a limb and tell you this. I don't need your sons and daughters and your nieces and nephews 4 years to get them a degree. In a flipped model, I need them 2. Doubt it? A month ago, mayor of a major city in California came up after a presentation and she said, thank you, thank you, thank you. My daughter just graduated, gave me the name of the prestigious California school with her bachelor's degree in biology. She just entered, gave me the name of a very prestigious medical school. For those of you in medicine, know this, you're here tonight. In our medical schools, we typically do this, do we not? Okay. For most of the medical school, you spend the first couple of years in what we call classroom environment oftentimes, okay? And then guess what? Almost all of them, both in human medicine and animal medicine, we have then what's called a cloaking ceremony. We give you your cloak and let you go do your clinicals, okay? It's a great model. But she said when her daughter entered this med school this fall in California, she was issued a fully loaded iPad and cloaked first day and sent to a hospital to start doing her experiential learning. Oh, incidentally, with 37,000 refereed scientific journal articles published every year, the iPad is turned in every week and downloaded with what? The latest data. Oh, get ready, folks. What a fun, incredible world. It's going to change medicine, going to change education. Don't know how. I can imagine some weird ones. Okay? But let me leave you with the one that I think best summarizes the spirit of this Orange County partnership. Okay? For lack of a better definition, I will say I don't know the answer, so let me back up and frame it this way. We know this, okay, and have known it for a long, long time. Married men get what's called the marriage premium. Okay? Married men live on average 3 years longer than single men. We've known that for a long time. Okay? It's true. Single men don't get it. Married men do. Women don't get it. Okay? You live forever anyway, so you do not get the marriage premium. Okay? Okay. And you know why single men do not live longer. The last thing a single man says before he dies, hold my beer and watch this. Single men do not get it. Okay? Okay. Okay. But married men do. We've also found in surveys that married men are more willing to die, but they do live on average 3 years longer. Okay? And you know, it's always been kind of fun to talk about that. But lo and behold, last few months, guess what? We got some good evidence on why. And let me tell you what the good evidence points to is this, okay? If I ask you, name as fast as you can your closest friend. Men will say, first answer comes out of our mouth, our spouse, our significant other. No, you can't name your spouse. Name your closest friend other than your spouse. And the second answer we get most often, our dog. Men name in that order our spouse and our dog. No, you can't name your spouse and dog. Name as fast as you can close male friends, and we're speechless. We go, ooh, let's see, I think George likes me. I don't know. We struggle. We name 3. We ask women, name as fast as you can close female friends. You can't shut up. Okay? Okay. In the time it takes us to name 3, you name 10. You already have what we've since in the last 2 years called deep and rich social connections. And they matter. Okay? We know this, all of you that are females. We know this. You can go through the most difficult labor on the planet. It can be excruciatingly tough, I've been told. But the moment that new infant, that new life is put in your bosom, the natural instinct of women is to what? You smile. It's life. And all medical science could say about it was what? It is the mother-child bond. Yeah, but guess what we're finding out? Your body to date, if you're in the presence of somebody you like, a human, typically your children, but not always. Typically your spouse or significant other, but not always. In about 30 minutes, your body has produced, to date, we've identified 110 different steroids. They're called bonding steroids. The most prevalent one is one called oxytocin. Okay? And if you know something about oxytocin, you've got a med college here, you know something about oxytocin. Oxytocin just makes you giddy. Okay? My wife is 5 feet tall, weighs 100 pounds when it's raining. We've been married 29 years, been together 33. I love this woman. When I'm in her presence, I'm just giddy. And when I'm not, I drink. Either way, I'm giddy. Okay. And you know, and I know because I've done this with doctors. They go, well, okay, Lowell, yeah. And I go, well, wait a minute. You know what? I'm going to come back and give you some harder data. So we went back and pulled out. And I know you've heard this term, big data, the cloud. Oh, get ready, folks. We're babes in the woods on this one. Let me tell you the importance of understanding having so much information out there, okay? And if you doubt that this is not changing the world for education and other things, think for just a minute. If you are a Star Trek fan, or if you remember 2001: A Space Odyssey, you remember in 2001: A Space Odyssey, and we had a little nasty computer, but the way that that person communicated with Hal was what? They talked to Hal. Hal was everywhere. And what did Captain Kirk always do? Computer. It's called ubiquitous computing. Folks, if you're a baby boomer and you could remember trivia, we got a lot of beers bought for us. Because we could always say what? Who was the second baseman when the Chicago Cubs finally got into the playoffs in 1984? You could remember trivia, somebody might buy you a beer. What's this generation do? Huh? Who? Google it. Ryan Sandberg. Buy me a beer. That's ubiquitous computing. We don't know what we're going to do with it. Big data. Get ready for it. But let me tell you one little implication of knowing the kind of information to pull out, okay? We launched a few years ago a wonderful satellite called Kepler. Kepler was put up for one reason, for those of you that are astronomers. Kepler was put up for one reason. We wanted to figure out, because we'd already found from ground-based observation, planets that circle suns. You understand that's tough, okay? You understand the only way we can figure out whether a planet is rotating around a sun is by the wobble that it will make in both bodies, because there's one body that's got a mass and it's rotating around another, and it's just slight. And that's where you can figure it out. And when the planet, if it ever does, pass between the observation and the star, the luminosity of that star changes just ever so slightly. You go, well, you could do that. Folks, the closest star to us is Proxima Centauri. That's 4 1/3 light years. Light travels 5,865,696,000,000 miles in a year. The closest star to us is 26 trillion miles away. So the closest one we found a planet on is 100 trillion. Do you understand what the fraction of light that changes that? But Kepler could do it. And we started finding planets about 6 on average every month announced. We got 350 plus identified already so far. And then Kepler had a little problem, and as we said, we had to turn it off. But every month, we still find about 6 planets. Kepler gave us a lot of data we're sorting through, but then we also went back and sorted through data from ground-based observations from 20 years ago. Those little changes were so slight, we couldn't even figure them out because we didn't know what in the hell we were looking for. And now that we do, we're finding planets everywhere. I tell you that to tell you this about those bonding chemicals. We went back and pulled down hundreds of long-term epidemiological studies, and we picked out 114 for this reason. They had once measured something but thought it was unimportant. And what they measured was this: do you have rich and deep social connections, or do you not? Are you the Unabomber? And guess what we found out? Here's the hard data, folks, when you know what you're looking for. If you have rich and deep social connections, in those 114 long-term epidemiological studies, you die from all causes, at 1/4 the rate of those that do not. It is totally 100 mathematically % reciprocal, which means if you don't have rich and deep social connections, you will die from all causes at 4 times the rate of those that do not. Trust me, that is statistically significant. Okay. That's powerful. And then Carnegie Mellon again said, well, let's see, if it holds for longevity, how about for infections? And they found this: if you have rich and deep social connections, you get infections at all costs and all types at 1/2 the rate. I say it this way: you want to have healthy people? The big data is showing us this: can't separate them from people. Try, can't do it. You want to have a healthy community? Can't have one without people to get together. Impossible. Just relearn. Many of you know it instinctively. I think that's the reason you have this partnership. You knew it. But let me tell you, folks, the data's proven it every day. And if you think it's true for people, I call it plants and animals and people. This is a beautiful room. What do you think would happen if we filled it with plants? Be costly. A little more ozone. What do you think we found out when people are around plants? Takes about 30 minutes for humans for your bonding chemicals to start being produced. Takes about 20 for plants. Gee, let's see. This is kind of a pretty part of the world, isn't it? Got some trees and got some grass. Gee, isn't it interesting that we're finding that what we thought was the way to do urban planning 40 years ago was what? Separate work, separate school, separate manufacturing, separate us all. And then we would spend an hour trying to commute to get together. And let me tell you, folks, the generation that grew up with this, they're rejecting it. Because the millennial generation is 75 million strong, almost as big as the baby boomers. Those of you in construction know this. Folks, by this time and this point in their life, they should have purchased 1 million more single-family homes. The numbers just came out last month. They did not. They don't want a single-family home at this point in their life. They want an apartment with a swimming pool that they can walk to the dry cleaners. It's not wrong or right. It's just they're changing us, okay? And if you don't think that generation's changed us in other ways, let me leave you with one more little number about them. My generation, baby boomers. My late father was a wonderful man. He was my parent, though. My mom is a wonderful mom still today, but she still tells me when I come to the supper table, when I go visit her, is clean your ears out, Lowell. Wash your hands. She's my parent. So by age 30, 5% of my generation still lived at home. The same age for the millennials and the edge of the Xers, it's 40%. They're not your parents. They're my friends. And I want to live with them. And besides, they're paying for this. And I know I told you about it last time, and we know it about humans and we know it about plants, and let me give you what veterinary medicine has found out about animals for you, okay? As I told you last time about my dog Tango, the Chesapeake Bay Retriever. We lived on this earth 15 years and 60 days. And during the last few weeks of her life when she was unsettled, my wife and I would just lay down with her because we didn't know what else to do, and we would just put our arm around her. And we would notice, though, that in a few minutes her breathing would ease, and she would go to sleep, and oftentimes so would we. It's all we need to do. We just loved her. And less than a year ago, veterinary medicine proved, guess what? Just like plants, in about 20 minutes, what happened to her oxytocin level and mine? They became identical. We thought we were helping her. But she was really helping us. What did Dr. Sexter tell you when he accepted that wonderful award? The reason that you have this med school here was it's a wonderful, beautiful place. But somebody made a phone call. That's the power of your partnership. Get ready.
Wow, not one note, not one piece of paper, nothing. That man is a genius, and he did a great job. Let's hear it one more time for Dr. Catlett. Eddie, Diana, welcome back. We're all praying for you. Everybody have a wonderful holiday season. On behalf of our board of directors at the Orange County Partnership, we want to say travel safely and thank you so much for all your support. Good night.
Start spreading the news. I'm